Well, that's number 10 of 10. This is the 165 grain Sierra GameChanger, loaded in ADG brass with 42.6 grains of RL-15 powder. Now I've got 5 rounds of these, and I've got 5 rounds of these Barnes 165 grain tipped triple shock bullets. And they're all going to head out to the range. We're going to have a little showdown or shootout between these two. In all other ways, these things are reloaded identically. Now we got to the 42.6 grains of RL-15 using an optimal charge weight methodology that we had developed in the last episode of Extreme Reloading. If you missed that or any of our other episodes, just go ahead and check in the description for a link to the entire season playlist. Now these rounds were loaded also with Federal Premium Match Large Rifle primers. These are excellent primers. Another primer that I really like are the CCI Bench Rest primers. And I prime my rounds using this 21st Century Shooting priming tool. This is really quite an instrument. And we've demonstrated that using something like this actually improves your reloading because of the consistency at which those primers are seated in a uniformed primer pocket that also has had its flash holes prepared. So a little bit of work on the primer end has really paid some nice dividends. Well, I could talk about this load for a long time, but I'm more excited about heading out to the range and see how all this goes. Now we're going to be running one of my basic PAC tests today, and that is precision, accuracy, and consistency. So I'll be shooting a traditional bullseye target, and that is how I'm going to be measuring both precision and accuracy. The precision measurement is in the size of the group, the extreme spread, and because I'm shooting rifles, I usually like to measure it and report it finally in MOA. That way I get a comparison whether I'm shooting at 100 yards, which we'll be doing today, or 200 yards, or 300, or whatever. Now the accuracy test comes in from that same target, and that's where I'm going to be scoring that bullseye target. Now if you watched our previous episodes, you noticed that all my workups are shooting pretty darn high. So I've made an adjustment to my scope, and I've brought it down so they should be shooting right there on dead bullseye or awfully close. And that should be the case for either the Barnes or the Sierra bullets. Before coming out to the range, I dried the bore, running a clean patch through it a number of times. And then, off camera, I fired 5 Fowlers, shooting at some steel that I brought out for the day. I'm going to first begin by shooting these Sierra bullets. 5 shots with the Sierra, aiming at dead bullseye on the target on the left. Round number 3. And it certainly looks like my minor adjustment in the scope, I just dropped it down a little bit. That seems to be working pretty darn well. Now the consistency part of our test, by the way, is going to be measured using our lab radar chronograph. I realize you can't see it in this video, but it's just off camera a little bit to the right. Next, I'm firing 5 rounds of these Barnes bullets, same exact test. And now I'm, of course, shooting at the bullseye target on the right. 2049, got a reading. Unfortunately, my remote camera died after round number 1. Don't know what happened to that, but I ended up actually shooting 5 different rounds. By the way, my exclamation of "ah" a couple minutes ago is not because necessarily of a bad shot, but rather I'm fighting the sun. 2483. Now we're going to head back in and analyze these rounds for precision, accuracy, and consistency. Well, all in all, things went pretty well. Little bit of technical difficulties. The remote camera decided to die after 1 shot on those Barnes, but I did capture all 5 shots from the Sierra GameChangers on camera, so that's cool. And now let's go ahead and analyze or recap this PAC test. In other words, the precision, accuracy, and consistency test. Now, 2 parts of this test rely strictly upon a bullseye target. And what we have here is the results of that bullseye target for the Sierra 165 grain GameChanger bullets. Boy, that's a nice group. This is at 100 yards, and the group actually measured 1.051 inch at 100 yards. MOA at 100 yards is actually 1.047. So this is just barely MOA. Actually, to be official on it, it's just a hair shy of MOA. Really, 1.047 rounded to 2 decimal places is 1.05. This rounded to 2 decimal places is also 1.05. I'm going to call it MOA. It's just barely MOA. But it scored well also. And by the way, I dropped my scope 1 mil, and that put me almost perfectly on dead bullseye with this Sierra GameChanger bullet. Still a little bit shooting to the left. But my score was 49 out of a possible 50 points. I'm not kicking on that. I've got 4 considered in the dead bullseye in the X, all 4 of those also in the 10 ring, and then 1 flew out of the 10 ring into the 9. Very happy with these results. Now the Barnes 165 grain tipped triple shock bullet. This is the exact same bullet that I use in a couple of my other rifles, like my 338 Win Mag, 416 Rigby. Both are using tipped triple shock bullets, and they really do a fantastic job on game animals. But this one didn't quite make, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it, did not really make MOA. 1.297, 1.3 MOA for a 5-shot group. Bullseye scoring is 44 out of 50. Not too bad. It actually still shot high even though I made that same adjustment. It actually also had a lower muzzle velocity. That was kind of interesting as I was watching that, but recall that these Barnes bullets are pure copper bullets, save for the polymer tip. And we oftentimes see a little bit different performance out of these Barnes and similar pure copper bullets. And what I mean by that is that they actually have a little bit different pressure curve compared to a traditional jacketed, essentially lead core bullet. And they can fly a little bit different. Some barrels do not like these bullets. Other barrels do just fine with them. Would I say that this barrel does not like the bullets? I don't know. Not really. If I had zeroed it for this, it would have shot really nice. 1.2, 1.3 MOA is not the end of the world for a hunting bullet. Not the end of the world at all. So I'm not really complaining. But at the same time, I will acquiesce and say that the Sierra GameChanger beat the Barnes TTSX. In fact, it also beat it on the consistency. These Barnes bullets loaded exactly the same. ADG brass, RL15 powder, exact same powder charge. These bullets have almost absolutely identical bullet lengths, so the burn chamber was essentially the same. So I will say that OCW was probably or is probably the same for both of these bullets, although I'm not certain of it. It probably is the case. And because I was in that sweet spot, I normally have about 1/10 of a grain of play in either direction, and I can still stay inside that OCW sill that we're looking at. Now, by the way, on the OCW, if you're interested, these are things that we had already accomplished and developed in our previous episodes, so please check the links in the description below for some more information about previous episodes of extreme reloading. But back to the consistency. I had hoped to achieve single-digit standard deviations. That didn't accomplish it with either of my bullets, but I came closest with the Sierras. Essentially 11 feet per second standard deviation. That's not bad. It's not perfect, or not great in my mind either, but it's pretty darn good. And we had about 13 feet per second standard deviation with the Barnes bullets. But the PAC test is not the end-all for these bullets. In fact, the other very important part for any bullet is its terminal performance, or the PAC-T part of the test. And for that, I'm going to enlist some ballistic gelatin. Now, this just came in not too long ago. This is Clear Ballistics ballistic gelatin. I purchased the 20% NATO block. I have 2 of these things, and we're going to head back out to the range and test both of these bullets in ballistic gelatin to see their terminal performance. And it's still possible that the Barnes bullet outperforms the Sierra GameChangers, and this is an important part of a rifle bullet, and especially a bullet designed for hunting applications. So let's head back out to the range one more time and test these and complete the PAC-T test. All right, let me set this up here. Each one measures 16 inches in length by 6 inches in height and 6 inches in depth or width. The front face of the first block that you're looking at on the right has been placed 15 yards from the muzzle of this Ruger precision rifle that we're using today. Now, I chose 15 yards because at that very close range, rifle bullets can sometimes shed their jacket when they're impacting something at very close range, or rather at very high velocities. The second reason why I did this is, hey, this is only a 6-inch by 6-inch block. I want to hit these things pretty much smack dab in the center, and so it's going to be much easier for me to place this shot. And in fact, I'm actually still using my rifle rest today. I'm placing one shot on a paper target first to see the exact offset of that round based on my point of aim versus point of impact. And then I'm making a similar adjustment when I'm placing the reticle on this gel block. And just in case the bullet makes it all the way through both of the gel blocks, I have a backup there, which is a 5-gallon bucket filled with some sand. I've got two cameras running. The one that we're looking at right now I'll call my main camera, and then I have a reverse angle camera set up on the other side to give me another view of these bullets as they travel into and through the ballistic gelatin. I hope that makes sense to you. We've got everything set up. Let's start by firing the Barnes TTSX. Holy smokes! All right, we're back at the house now. Time to do a bit of a recap. 2 rounds in this set of ballistic gelatin. First round was the Barnes tipped triple shock 165 grain bullet, and that one was here, and it appears as the upper channel in this first block. And I'm going to move the camera over and look more closely at the second block in just a little bit. The second round was the Sierra GameChanger 165 grain bullet. That one entered a little bit below the Barnes bullet, and as you can see had a nice straighter wound channel, and then continued on for 4 more inches in the second block. Now each of these blocks, recall, is 16 inches in length, 6 inches by 6 inches, 16 inches, and another 4 over there gave us 20 inches of penetration on that Sierra bullet. The Barnes bullet penetrated all 32 inches, both of those blocks, ended up going into my reserve bucket, which was filled with some sand, and that's where I found that lodged Barnes bullet. We'll take a look at that bullet and the Sierra here in just a little bit. But let's go on and take a look at the second block now. Okay, here we're continuing on from the first block. Now one thing I did want to point out is that on this Barnes bullet, right around here, the Barnes bullet, for whatever reason, decided to start an upward sort of travel. And that actually made it exit the block, right about, just about at the end of the block anyway, but and then travel into that sand bucket. But that there is our Sierra GameChanger bullet right there. 4 inches of penetration here, 16 inches there, that's our 20 inches. Final recap, folks. You know the precision, accuracy, and consistency PAC part of our test? Sierra GameChanger was a clean sweep. It won all three of those categories. Now the terminal ballistics and the terminal ballistic test give us some kind of different results, and certainly something to think about. Now when we're talking about terminal ballistics, what we're talking about is how the bullet acts on the target, whatever it's being shot at. And these are hunting bullets, not self-defense bullets, but hunting bullets. And so we have to consider the game animal. Now a .308 Winchester is a very good round for white-tailed deer, mule deer, those sorts of things. My preference on that game animal, by the way, is my 7mm mag. But a .308 can certainly do the job, and I know a number of people who use a .308 for deer hunting. So that's kind of the game animal that we're talking about. And what we want to consider is how well did that bullet perform, and what can that tell us about how good one bullet is compared to the other for hunting deer with a .308. Now a couple of things that we want to look at is number one, the wound channel. And number two, specific to the wound channel, we try to capture what's called transient cavitation, that portion of the wound channel. Now, that's kind of a fancy word, transient cavitation. Well, cavitation is the cavity created by the wound, by the bullet, okay? And transient simply means that it's short in duration. It doesn't last for very long. And that transient cavitation then means that ballooning effect that happens very, very quickly, pretty much as soon as the bullet enters the medium in the gel or the game animal. Now I was running both of our cameras on slow motion, and I tried to capture, by moving frame by frame, I tried to capture that moment of transient cavitation. I think I got it for both of our bullets. But looking at that wound channel and the transient cavitation shot that I got is really a subjective measure of terminal performance. It's really difficult to make any measurements off of the screen, those sort of things. I'm not even going to try to do that. So we're going to leave this as a qualitative or subjective measurement. Still can be very valid, where we say that one is large and the other one's small, or this one's larger and that one is smaller. So the Barnes bullet had a fantastic or tremendous transient cavitation channel relative to the Sierra GameChanger. The Sierra GameChanger's transient cavitation channel wasn't anything to scoff at either. It just wasn't as dramatic, let's say, as was the full-length wound channel produced even into the second block by the Barnes bullet. So Barnes now is in the lead for terminal performance. But there are a couple things that we can do to actually measure or quantify terminal performance. And one measure is depth of penetration. And once again, Barnes wins. It's 2-0. The Barnes bullet penetrated all 32 inches and ended up in my reserve dirt bucket on the far side. But I will note that there is a consideration there, or a concern perhaps, on over-penetration. Ideally, what happens is as that bullet enters the game animal, we see that very violent transient cavitation, lots of wounding. The animal is going to be killed very, very quickly, almost or instantaneously. And what we really like to see is that as we're skinning the animal, there we find the bullet right underneath the skin on the far side. That doesn't happen too often. What we don't want to see is that the bullet strikes bone, something like that, and it either deflects or doesn't really go too far. Sometimes they fragment. And the fact that the Sierra GameChanger had a 20-inch wound channel indicates it would probably perform that way on deer if it was passing through soft tissue. Maybe we put that shot right between two ribs. goes in, gets through the muscle without too much problem into the heart and lung area. Soft tissue, easy, ends up probably on that far side. Beautiful deal and a good clean kill. However, if we're striking the shoulder, striking some ribs, maybe it's a little bit larger animal, a little bit thicker musculature on that animal, we may not get all the way into there as we want to. So having some insurance on that bullet that it's gonna really get through that animal is really good in my estimation. And also consider the fact that you may not always have that ideal broadside shot. The animal may be quartering a little bit to you, something like that, and you may have to go right through that shoulder, drive it into the engine room, and then kill that animal as cleanly as possible. So that's certainly something to consider. And I'll say that, yes, once again, Barnes wins in the depth of penetration. We didn't see any jacket and core separation. However, we did see a loss of weight, and that brings up another quantitative measure in terminal ballistics. We call it weight retention, or percent weight retention. Now remember, both these bullets started at 165 grains. The Barnes bullet ended up 164.2 grains. That is a 99% weight retention, whereas the Sierra GameChanger ended up with a 143 grains retained, or 87.2% weight retention. So once again, Barnes strikes up the win on weight retention of that bullet. And yet another consideration is the expansion. Now this Barnes X bullet expanded very nicely, and its frontal area is 177% of its original area, 308. The other thing I'll point out is notice that the Barnes bullet has this very long shank remaining intact. That is going to allow that bullet to keep driving more or less forward. However, we did see this round about 3/4 of the way through the first gel block kind of take a slight change in direction. The Sierra bullet, on the other hand, had a much larger expansion. In fact, this bullet expanded more than twice the size of its original, giving us almost 216% expansion. So now Sierra wins the percent expansion measure of terminal performance. Now I've been hunting for a long time, 30, I guess it's getting close to 40 years, and I've killed quite a number of white-tailed deer and some mule deer. And all of those game animals that I've harvested or taken were killed, nearly all of them were killed with Barnes bullets, all different sorts of X bullets. My choice then between the Sierra GameChanger and the Barnes tipped triple shock is the Barnes. Yeah, I know the precision, accuracy, and consistency all goes to the Sierra GameChanger, and it did have a very impressive wound channel, but not as impressive as the Barnes. And as far as I'm concerned, I kind of really like that insurance, if you want to call it that, that animal that I'm shooting is going to die as absolutely quickly as possible when hit with the Barnes TTSX. Now my son is not so convinced. He's kind of thinking that that Sierra GameChanger ending up at a 20-inch penetration might just be ideal. He's a little bit more concerned with the over-penetration and where is that bullet going to go afterwards. And that is a very valid consideration. My experience, though, is that that bullet doesn't have too much energy once it leaves, and it pretty much nosedives, and I've seen it hit the snow, maybe sometimes 10, 15 yards after the animal. It just doesn't go sailing for miles after that. So you know what? I would actually really like to hear your comments on this. Given all this information, if you had to choose one of these two bullets for hunting, which one would you choose? Hey, go ahead and leave your comments, your ideas in the comment section below. Hey, and stick around because we're going to roll the bloopers of that reverse angle camera that itself took a nosedive after the first shot. I was not at all expecting that trampoline effect of the ballistic gelatin. We saw it both times with these rifles. So thanks for watching and stick around for the bloopers.